Okay, this is Rulia from 1977. Start out with the picture quality. Alright, I'm watching the streaming version, and this movie is only available on DVD. It's not available on Blu-ray, so this is pretty much as good as it's going to get. You've got artifacts along the borders of stuff. You've got like color bleed just from the film negative leaking. This movie's got a big problem with softness of especially like in the flashback scenes. Like they've got a gauze filter over the camera probably, or you know, something that made the capture like way more like less crisp than it would have been otherwise. And you can really tell it in the earliest flashback scenes. Like it's just gotten super soft. And you know, with film negative, or you know, just with film, you can really see kind of graininess sometimes in darker scenes, and you know that's still the case. That said, it doesn't make it hard to discern what you're seeing, and even in the darkest scenes, they've still got enough detail to where it's not total junk. For the visual quality, I would say it's pretty average for DVD. You know, the motion is good. It's got a lot of you can see it more, like it starts to crop up more in the transitions because of the reel changes, like dust specks and stuff. I would say it's like just pretty solid 50%. Well, no, it's probably below that. I'd say it's like 40%. I think I've got to start reserving the higher ratings for like Blu-ray quality stuff. Oops. Audio quality. You can this is a movie from 1977. It sounds like it was made in 1960s just because of the poor quality of the audio. Alright, so this is a really quiet scene, and you can still hear hiss in the background, just because of whatever recording mechanism they were using. It's also got low dynamic range, even in the parts with really loud and low sounds. You know, I mean, if this, you know, this isn't an action movie. It's got some action parts, but even then, it's like the stuff doesn't sound like it's got a really big kick to it, and that's not because of my headphones. These are actually pretty bass heavy. Trying to fast forward to the part where she's getting in a fight. There are going to be spoilers in this. I don't recommend the movie, so I don't really care enough to keep it free of spoilers. Where's the thing where she's getting in the fight? Because that's got a really loud part. There, this. Just the audio isn't that great. It's worse than the video quality, because I mean, for some reason audio is actually harder to get body thudding. See, I mean, that should be a really big deep sound. Alright, this is a group of guys. people running on solid floors in a gigantic atrium. You should expect a lot of bass, a lot of range, but that's just all lost because of whatever recording medium or file saving format that they used. For audio quality, it makes, I watch movies with captions almost all the time because I'm usually doing other stuff while I'm watching it, but you know, I don't, and the captions actually picked up on a lot of stuff that I couldn't hear. And the next movie that I'm currently watching is An Unmarried Woman. That movie's got some really good captioning work in it. It's like this movie and Unmarried Woman both are pretty accurate as far as the captions go. Because there's some stuff I wouldn't have been able to hear otherwise. Audio quality, not good. It's less than that. I'd say around 30%. Not the worst, not the best. Production values. For a movie that's supposed to be a drama, and this movie is kind of a cross between domestic drama and like kind of a period piece, like something that's like a series of vignettes over a span of maybe 40 years, not counting the bookends. So it's got a big variety of locations. The locations are all spot on. None of them look anachronistic. They look very detailed and like they've all been restored. And they don't look like we picked out this place, because it sort of looks like something you might be able to see from the 40s. A lot of this stuff looks like it's been made from the ground up, or you know, if it's based on something else, it's, you know, they went through and made sure that all the details were right. The bird thing on the table, though, like, I'm pretty sure that's an MC Escher reproduction piece of something that he got that was given to him by his father-in-law. And that's probably something that they put in, like, just because they've got a set of stock props that they were using in the movie. Locations do factor into the story, and they're a key part of the story. They've got this whole distance between the two leads that becomes a really big obstacle, and it's almost like a character in itself. And each one of the sets kind of has its own character in terms of the feel for each scene that it's in. So the sets are not a problem in this movie. I think for the kind of topic that they're covering, which is, it's right before World War II. It ends before World War II really gets started, except for the bookends. So I would expect stuff to look a little nicer, but I think it's good that they did find some sets that were already pretty run down and might have had some touch-up work, you know, 20 or 30 years after World War II ended. So the sets are really good, and they're integral to the story. They aren't, you know, even though they're choosing these... This house, though, I mean, it kind of looks a little too Frank Lloyd Wright-y, kind of, for this time period. Like, it doesn't look like it quite matches. It looks like it's more like a 60s or 40s looking house rather than the house that was built in 1934 or before 1934. Nothing really jumps out at me as something that is like, I want to rewatch this movie just because of the sets. They're shooting on location, they've got some nice looking houses, but it's nothing that's like, you know, where you see certain movies that are based in a certain location and they're indivorceable from that location and you can't see the movie apart from that. And they've got outdoor sets that are wide enough in scope, and yet it doesn't lose any of the period. And it's like, how? What is this thing? Oh, that's only up. How were they able to close stuff up enough to get this to work? But it's nothing that's really like eye-catching, like you're gonna want to watch this for the sets and the locations. But they are spot on, pretty much. I would say it's between 83 and 100%, probably north of 90. I'm a lot more reluctant to give stuff a good rating when it starts to get up that high. Probably 87%. Oops. 87% for the sets. Costumes. The costumes are all really good. And they all match the period. Nothing is anachronistic. Some of the clothes even jump
Happy
out
New Year,
as
grandmother.
being, you know, cool
Happy
looking
New
in
Year,
their own
Julia.
right. You know, something that's unique apart from its time. It looks like it was designed specifically for the movie and for the characters.
Happy New Year, grandfather. Why did we...
Just trying to get an idea for more of the costumes. Everybody's kind of got
Yes,
their own
Hotel Jacob.
style.
I won't leave until...
I don't know what hers is. I guess it's just... It's just kind of typical clothes that's, you know, look like they're at her income range. And then you've got, you know, all the extras are well dressed, everything matches. This is like the kind of pants, like those capri pants, like that Jackie Onassis wore. And she doesn't just like stick to one style of clothing, you know, as her income goes up and down.
The Tuileries now?
She ends up wearing nicer clothes. She runs into people that are at other income brackets and their clothes change too. You know, you can tell this guy isn't like a James Bond type or some foreign dignitary that's rolling in dough. And I look at some of these
Enough
costumes,
partying and I'm gonna leave. It's not like it.
and it feels like they're kind of... I'm pretty sure this was around the same time that Indiana Jones was made. It was probably before it. So I could see some of this stuff inspiring other movies, or maybe it's just because, you know, they're coming from a similar source of clothing that people wear.
To be so mysterious. I'm late. I gotta go.
Yeah, well, we'll see you to the station.
No, Alan. No, I don't need you.
Alan,
I'll write you. I'll call you from Moscow.
Why are you in
Alan,
Moscow?
why are you...
This movie and the one after this like has some kind of a recurring theme with people pushing their way into taxis when where the women don't want them to be in there. Must be a New York thing.
Are you doing this?
Because our friend Lily's gone.
This guy, I think, maybe I'm gonna refer to him later on. He might have been the thing that kind of blew the whole cover for stuff. Like,
Berserk, what am I supposed to do?
Julia captured. You got all the military garb for the Nazis. They don't actually have any U.S. soldiers. This side is more, alright, it's either going to be Lillian and Dash, or Lillian with the socialites that she's hanging out with, but it's not like she really gets involved with the U.S. side of things. It's not like a spy movie like, like Scarecrow and Mrs. King, where she's getting involved in something and winds up, going on high-flying adventures and stuff. You've got a very important costume piece, and it's actually a little bit too much of an important costume piece to where it actually takes over the movie, which can be just as bad of a thing as if the costumes are totally insignificant. And it's not really, it's more of a prop than a costume piece. So yeah, everybody looks appropriate. Not everybody looks, eye-catchingly interesting. When you got the people that are living under more of a strain, they end up wearing like just more drab, dowdy-looking, kind of worn-out-looking clothes. There are some cool looking costumes in it. And they pretty much suit their character, but they don't go that far with matching costumes to a person's personality. They could have gone a lot further with it, matching costumes to mood and stuff, but they just didn't end up doing that. It's more of a stays more along the lines of this person's European, this person's American, this person has money, this person doesn't. These people are obviously actors. These people are obviously, audience members. You got your civilians, you got your Nazis. Okay, so for the costumes. Good job. Not as much of an integration with story as the sets are. Not something that's as key to the story. And the stinking hat is, as you're going to hear, is just a really bad thing for the story. Probably 67. Just keep it manageably sensible. Makeup and hair. Alright, the makeup is okay. There's really nothing wrong with the makeup. It's not anachronistic.
I see a gun and a handsome soldier's going to shoot.
Nothing looks like it's from the 70s, late 70s, in terms of the makeup. And they did a good job with the...
I don't know what you mean.
Her looking wounded, and when people get stressed out, when people are comfortable, when people are supposed to be looking their appropriate age for the context of the story, continuity-wise, the makeup is fine. I usually combine hair and makeup into one rating though, but for this, I think it's gonna make more sense for me to just kind of rate it on its own and then average the two. Makeup doesn't play a role in the story. Ever. I'll just say 87%. There's nothing like super magnificent about the makeup in the movie. The hair. Alright, the hair is actually a problem in this movie. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Watch through that again, maybe. Paying attention to the hair and even some of the clothes in that. It wound up looking anachronistic. Because you've got this hair that kind of looks like it's... And movies have been doing this forever. Maybe it's just, back then hair designers weren't as careful with trying to match stuff to the period. Maybe it was the actors being sensitive about, looking out of style. But a lot of the hair in this looks like it belongs in the early 80s and not in the 1930s. And what I mean by that is people tend to have this brushed, poofy look where it's got like, you know, the hair's kind of been teased, and so, you know, it's looking like it's really big hair. Even in the flashbacks, they do this. Well, actually, especially in the flashbacks. You know, if you look at photos of people from, this would have been 1920s or 1910s, in the really early flashbacks, they didn't have, they didn't look like this. All right. It's just a completely different hairstyle, and I don't really feel the need to describe it because I'm just coming out of watching Four Clowns which was, you know, around the 1920s, where, you know, none of the characters in this had hair that looks like this. You know, in any of those shorts, none of them have hair like this. The style back then was, you know, kind of plastered down, really tight curls, close to the head. I can't even say that the hairstyle really matches personality in this. It kind of matches their role, like what their career is, or their personal decisions that they've made. And it varies, you know, by just like with the costumes.
Do you ever hear from her?
But it still looks like it's something that, I thought this was Annette O'Toole, but it's not. It's actually Meryl Streep.
Well,
it still looks like somebody from the early 80s took the hair and tried to make it look like something that was from, you know, the 1930s. And they're not starting from a blank slate of, here's what we need from the 1930s, let's get that look, and not try to keep the hairstyle from the 1980s going at the same time. To sum up, the hair is bad. And it's distracting. So I'm going to say 17% for the hair. Oops. Special effects. This movie does have some... Alright. There's special effects like fades, like crossfades, like double exposure effects. And then there's, surprisingly, some action scenes in this. You know, where there's a fight going down and somebody getting... You know, there's people getting hurt and stuff. So those are stunts, and I'm sure that somebody, you know, they didn't really have to be in here to understand what's going on, but it really does help set the tone of
Dear Dash, I try to concentrate on my play, but I feel sick. There's no reason for my nausea other than fright.
So the special effects are well done, and they're smoothly integrated into it. With some of the stuff, I wonder, you know, was it a special effect or not? You know, there's no way that they were shooting any of these scenes on the train in a moving train. I mean, I can't really imagine how they would be doing that. Well, actually, no. Some of the earlier scenes where she's getting on, like, had to have been shot from a moving train at some point, I think. But no, this is actually stationary, and they're not moving. So they could have just had, I mean, this could have just been not even a train and just a stationary set. And then the rest of the trip, part of the trip anyway, is shot all in the dark. But it's convincing enough that it feels like it's actually being shot on a train.
Thank you.
Same thing with the bars and any atmospheric effects. You know, if there needs to be smoke
Coaches make me
moving
too
around.
noticeable.
The lighting in this, I haven't gotten to the lighting yet, but the lighting in the stage scene, these look like
Я знал его,
fluorescent
король.
lights. They don't
Это был
look
человек
like, you know, the kind of
бесконечного
yellowy
остроумия.
tungsten
Он
lights
1000 раз
or,
таскал
you
меня на
know,
спине. А теперь это само
candlelight.
отвращение тошнотой
So I'll
подступает
come
к
back to how
горлу.
that lighting is bad later.
Здесь должны были двигаться губы.
You said neebly. And then they've got,
Disposition her family
you know,
wishes to
other
make.
fight scenes.
We could
We've
not
got a
reach
lot of
the
fight
parents
scenes
or
in
the
this movie. There's the table flipping scene. There's
Someplace. And to this day, of all the girls I've ever...
trying to think of some other. Oh yeah, there was the thing where she's falling off the log. And those are just stunts. Like I'm not. There's a lot of smoke effects in these. Smoke everywhere. It's like most of the special effects in this are smoke. Tons and tons of smoke, like everywhere. Like everything is smoke. Shut up, lady. Okay. So yeah, the special effects are pretty well integrated into it, and they're really important for setting the mood. And they're important for telling the story because they're a key part of it. Trying to get across that, hey, guess what? This person got in a big stinking fight and got seriously injured, and then all kinds of bad things happen as a result of this one fight. So good integration, believable effects, well integrated, tons of effects, and they're all believable. I think it deserves like 90% for the stunts. Alright, calculate this up. I need to stop formatting this like this. Alright, and I'm weighting that one thing differently. 87 plus 67. Actually, no. 87 plus 17 divided by 2 is 52%. Totally drugged down by the hair. Except that I want to give it a higher, weight it higher than that. Like 57% for the hair, 87 for the sets, 67 for the costumes, and then 90 for the stunts, divided by 4, so we get about 75.25. There's other stuff that I don't usually incorporate routinely, and I just leave it in the etc. category. There are a ton of extras in this. There are a ton of expensive looking sets in this. A lot of expensive looking stunt work. Well, kind of. I mean, geez, the log is like 14 feet up. It's not that bad. It's a very big budget movie, and you know they've got a bunch of locations, so production value is really not a problem with this movie. My average for these 5 areas is 75.25%, but it's a lot better than that. I think probably like 79%. Music. There is some music that I haven't heard before. Certain pieces of classical music that set a good tone that, hey, guess what? This story's going to be a tragedy. It's going to be a big crying drama with sad and fighting and drama and drama and drama.
old paint
It's
on.
kind of memorable. Not in a, I really want to remember
You're
this
the
kind
one
of
who
way.
talked me into being a writer. Dashel.
They don't have wall-to-wall music. There's no way a gramophone record is gonna sound that clear. Nothing, I don't remember this song at all. Like, it's not something that's memorable. Just the beginning part is, probably because I've heard it multiple times and they used it as bookend. I think it's best that they use it sparingly, but I don't know why they don't just omit it altogether aside from ambient music. I liked A Touch of Evil way better in the way that they handled music. It's just, the music is used in a few key scenes. And I wonder if it's because they had a low budget, or if it's because, they didn't want to have licensed music. And I think that's probably more closer to what the actuality is. Rather than,
Téléphone.
that they were
Mademoiselle,
deliberately not
téléphone.
including music because they didn't want to have it
They
repeat.
call from Vienna.
What happened? Oh my God, how serious is it? Of course I'm coming, please!
I don't think it's as much an artistic decision as it is just a budget thing. Or maybe that it's a lot harder to have matching music with a lot of high drama stuff. It's better just to let the... Oh yeah, they do this every time. They bring in this score every time that they've got a flashback, I think.
Lily, you don't have to come this way.
They
Go
don't
down
make it so
under.
it's a
Wade
big,
across.
happy, time, like, oh yeah, I remember nostalgic things coming on my screen. Like, I'm reflecting on this and I'm still sad. Trying to see if they've got any party music in this part. And there's plenty of sections where they could have used music to try to anvil home that...
I don't think you should continue with Napoleon, Sammy. Why don't you try the Wright brothers, or one of them? Try Orville.
What about marriage?
Unmemorable music in the background. I mean, for the most part, the only time that they bring in music is when it's ambient and when it's in flashback mode. Or when she's doing this, when she's kind of having visions of what's going on elsewhere. I guess it's because she's got like a hunch. I mean, I don't actually know what they're trying to communicate here. Like, does she have some kind of psychic ability to see what's going on with Julia? Or is it, as a result of her ultra sharp imagination as a playwright? They never clear that part up, ever. Yeah, I could draw my own conclusions, but they never, like, outright state it. They never say, yes, well, she can tell what's going on with Julia because, they know each other so well, and she's sensitive to, like, she's got some kind of a forced connection, spirit bond with her. It's just kind of more artistic license of splicing the two together, and probably what they're just trying to show is that she's nervous all the time and she can't really ever let go of that anxiety that she's afraid of what's going to happen. Then it finally comes to pass. So the music does help out the story, and I'm glad that it stays out of the way. It's just that not all of it is memorable, and it doesn't really detract from it, but it doesn't really plus it either. So for being inconspicuous and for setting the tone of it and matching it well and not really contributing anything harmful, I think it's probably 66%. Come on. Color. I think the color is mostly good, except that, like I was talking about with the visual quality, you get stuff like this. Look at the border of this guy's arm. This is the dark side of, alright, so this shape is a dark shape, and then it's against a lighter background because there's more light back there. This bleed is not because of the lights that were present on set. This is a result of bad film quality. So this kind of stuff, when you've got bad visual quality, that's a part of color, and it negatively affects it. Every scene pretty much will have its own, I think it's mostly just, you know, the difference between light and darks. But it does use some warm cool balancing to give a feel for what's going on. The bookends, they use these really cool desaturated colors, and I don't mean cool like as in, well, this looks, you know, something that's awe-inspiring. It's cool as in the color tone is cool. And then when they go to the flashbacks, you get these really, well, I mean, relatively speaking, very saturated colors. I've got a problem with this, though, in that the furniture that they used kind of looks worn out, and they've got these, I might be wrong, but it looks like some of these light sources are unmotivated, and like they've got a lighting rack that's actually above these two lights, because I think the light that was coming out of these two would just be wouldn't be enough to light all the stuff that you're seeing here, and it's really not even that good of a look. You've got these really sharp shadows coming off of stuff just because you got a smaller number of light sources. So it kind of like winds up looking like a pool hall rather than like a fancy home dinner place. And the lighting varies and the color varies based on what kind of tone they're trying to set for it. This is a scene where, you know, it's kind of a, you know, them's the happy memories that I look back on. Same with anytime she's like traveling around with Lillian or visiting her at college and stuff. Stuff tends to, you know, even when it's like she's visiting her during the resistance period, stuff ends up looking more like alive, and you know, it's got it kind of tends to be yellow, kind of a yellow or a brown tone, or a lot of greens. And then once they get out of that, they go back into womb. This is, I mean, you've still got the kind of pale colors with red in front of them, but it's not like back here where you've got the dinner going on, you know, where everything's rich and expensive. It's just kind of like, this is kind of a decent, cozy train ride, and it's kind of, the stuff is still anxious in spite of all this stuff going on. And they kind of pull it off more with the lighting than with the color. And when things are getting into a tense situation, they kind of turn off the lights and bring it down to a smaller number of light sources. When it's something that's nostalgic, they go bright or green, or it's daylight out. When she's got like a conflict going on, they just turn off the lights entirely, and she, you know, they're just talking by firelight or just by, you know, overcast skies, until it finally ends up that everything is just really desaturated looking. Color is actually a problem with the desaturation in this movie. I think it's just a function of when it was made, rather than you know, kind of like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, where they're deliberately desaturating things. It's just the colors don't look very vibrant, even when they're supposed to be looking vibrant. It's just stuff ends up looking dull. Alright, so to sum up color, it matches the mood of the story a lot of the time, and other times it looks just kind of icky. So probably around like 75% for the color. Lighting, I think I've pretty much covered it in conjunction with the color. There are some problem spots, especially whenever they decide to use fluorescent lights to do stuff. You know, even in a place that wouldn't warrant having fluorescent lights in the 1930s. But overall, the lighting is good. It's not the best lighting though. It's not like Road to Perdition quality of lighting, or Benjamin Button, or really, you know, a lot of black and white movies where there'll be like noir look. It doesn't pull off noir as well as even those two. So not nearly as good with the lighting as with the color, but it's still close. I'd probably say 65% for the lighting. Cinematography. There's a ton of variation in composition, in movement of the subject within the frame. A lot of it is based on these kind of still shots, where it's setting a composition up rather than creating a thing that you're dynamically moving around. You can overdo that in some movies, and I'm sure they do it more nowadays than they did back then, where they're just totally abusing camera movement and moving the camera around, and it doesn't really warrant it. But they've got a ton of variation and stuff. It's not just head and shoulders shots. They've got big expository shots with lots of crowd movement. It varies by the tenseness of situation. You know, with this, they've only got the camera movement because they're trying to fit the subjects in the frame. They're not trying to create an artistic sense. I think Chariots of Fire probably had better cinematography. I could be wrong though. I'm probably wrong about this. This is probably better cinematography than Chariots of Fire. Because it's been a while since I've seen it. They set the scenes up well with pretty good expository shots. They don't go as close in with their extreme close-ups as you would see in a modern day movie, where it's just your really tight close-up.
Put the hat on the seat between us. Do as I tell you.
And they push more towards the framing the subjects in a way that you can see them, and toward the blocking works, rather than showing something artfully. They do a few things like that. Especially like with rack focus, like depth of field effects.
May I say how sorry I am, madam? Now, these are the documents you require.
Press E to collect items. They tend to open up a lot more with the experimental stuff when they're doing flashbacks, to where things are more surreal looking and kind of dreamy and sketchy. And then once you're firmly planted back in reality, they switch to setups that are almost like theater blocking.
I didn't try hard enough.
You hired detectives, you had lawyers, you did.
And that's kind of, a lot of this movie is showing things that could be done in a theater, but it's just easier to present it like this. And I don't like movies to where you could make them and display them in a theater. You know, you want to push the medium as far as you can go, and they didn't really push the film medium as much as they did. I mean, yeah, you're going to locations and stuff, but, you know, aside from the logistics of, you know, tear down and setup of or, you know, scene transitions between stuff and the expenses and the timing and stuff, it's mostly just kind of really domestic, boring stuff. You know, you might still be in a hospital in some foreign country, but you're still have two actors doing blocking that could be done, like on a set. It's like, I mean, really, you went all that way just to do like a scene where one character is laying on a bed and the other character is like sitting beside him. It's like, okay, you needed to make a movie just to show that. I think it's just like, it's good for its expository shots, but they spend so much time in scenes like this to where it's like, okay, the stuff that happens around this is not as important, because, you know, you still get these two actors. The blocking really isn't anything different than you would be able to see, you know, something in your own life, something that's imitable, and they're not really creating something that's like unique and interesting in terms of the cinematography. I just kind of wish that they'd taken more chances with this and pushed it kind of like, you know, a Spielberg film would do. Like, you know, Schindler's List is another World War II era film, and it's got very extreme cinematography, even though they could, I mean, that's kind of a movie where you would not be able to do that on set. It's just the kind of props that you require just would not give the audience the right feel. It's like, no matter how much you dirty up a theater, it's not going to look like a prison camp. So yeah, I'm not blown away by the cinematography, but it doesn't get in the way of showing what needs to be shown. They did take some risks, so for that I would say 57%. I'm not sure if I want to keep going with this because it's already 10 o'clock. I got a lot more to say about the actual content of the thing, and trying to figure out these characters and what their motivation is, and how well they were acted and how well the story was told. But you know, you can really split the production values apart from the story pretty easily. So yeah, I'm gonna stop for tonight. Just based on what you've seen so far, average will be, yeah, I mean, if you're to just judge it by production values, it might be worth watching. It's not like a huge endorsement for it though, because like some of the stuff you can't really take out of the context of the story. Like, I'm only giving the music this high of a rating because it doesn't get in the way. It's not like saying, hey, you should watch this movie for the music. Same with the lighting and the color. It's like it's getting this rating because it fits the story, not because it's outstanding in its own right.